Why are Western leaders allowing for Islamization? I mean, at this point, it seems pretty clear to us that this is just stupid. Like, there's no smart logic in it. The anti-Islam, the anti-immigration wave is growing. We now know in America that this is like the top 3 issues are socialism, anti-Islam, and anti-immigration. Okay, so if you're somebody, a leader in a country, it would make sense that maybe you would start to be against it or recognize the issues with it. I mean, it's definitely good for your voter base, right? That's what you would think. And so I've been trying to answer this question, because if I come at you all the time saying Islamization is a problem and our Western leaders are the problem, but I don't actually provide to you any of the reasons for why this is happening or the solutions, then what good am I? I'm just a rage baiter. And as we all know, I don't like rage baiters, and hopefully you don't either. So there's one man online that we actually haven't covered here nearly as extensively as we should, because it turns out that he's somebody who's really thought through a lot of these topics. Thank God he also has a big platform and a lot of exposure. And so today we're going to be reviewing his thoughts on everything that's going on in Islam and why these leaders are not really doing what seems to us as kind of pretty blatantly obvious that should be done at the moment. Now, before we do that, I just wanted to say thank you for being here at the Pushback with us. I really appreciate every single one of you. You know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, engage with us. I read every single comment, and I'm starting thinking about a series of maybe responding to some of your comments or your questions. So hit us with the questions below. Maybe we'll make a next video about you. But just in general, the fact that you're here and you're part of a movement to push back against the insanity that we're seeing in the world, Western societies, the infiltrations from every direction, and the kind of honestly shocking lack of courage from our leadership is something that we need to stop. It needs to end. And each one of us has a voice. Each one of us has the power to do something. And that's why we're here. And so if you're here with us, I truly appreciate it. If you want to support us, check out the links below or get in touch with us. We're always listening. We're always open. Okay, are you guys ready for a little Victor? I'm gonna skip this.
With all of the ton of police who reacted very quickly to terrorism or threats of Islam, ever do that?
This video of possible. Please consider joining today.
Hello, this is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal. We've had a lot of incidents worldwide of Islamic terrorism or threats of Islamic terrorism. The most egregious is in Bondi Beach, Australia, where 2 gunmen, a father and son, killed 16 people and wounded 40. How that happens in front of police who reacted very quickly, I don't know. They were only stopped by a heroic Syrian immigrant who tackled one of the shooters and disarmed him.
By the way, as of this morning, we just heard that a very similar attack was being planned in Manchester with 3 guys who were planning on doing something so revolting, so disgusting. I can actually pull up the details for you guys. 1 second. They planned to disguise themselves as Jews to infiltrate a march against anti-Semitism in Manchester city centre before opening fire on the crowd with assault rifles. The pair hoped to throw emergency services into chaos by paying people to make 999 calls across Greater Manchester, allowing them to slip away and continue their attack in the suburbs at the centre of the region's Jewish community. Saudi also planned to attack Christians, saying, God willing, after we finish with the Jews, we move on to the Crusaders. It would have been, according to senior detectives, the worst terrorist attack the UK has ever seen. And if you want to know what these people look like, can you see? I don't know if it's super duper clear, but guess what? They don't look like Victor, do they, guys? They don't look like Victor. All of this is to say that this is a very topical issue. It's not just a one-off incident in Australia. This is happening all the time and being planned all the time.
The problem with all of this is that there was no needed reaction from the Prime Minister of Australia. We didn't hear, we have to be very careful about radical Islam. These 2 people got 2 guns legally that they should not have had since they were on a watch list with terrorist activity. And there was no reason that this one shooter, the father, had 6 guns, among them semi-automatic weapons, in one of the most gun-controlled societies in the world. We didn't hear that. Instead, we heard that they condone all extremism. This is not who we are. We, in the utmost, you know, the whole boilerplate. And then they said, we oppose all extremism, and it was a nanosecond before they said white extremism that had nothing to do with this. The second incident was in the Champs-Élysées in Paris. They canceled the annual Christmas celebration because they were afraid of radical Islamic protests. This is a French, predominantly at one time Catholic country, and they're afraid of 10 to 12% of their population can cancel the entire celebration. Would they ever do that for a Islamic celebration? Would the majority say, we're the majority and you can't have? No, they wouldn't. And then we come to the United States. We lost 2 soldiers overseas stationed in Syria that were executed, ambushed by a supposedly ISIS murderer. Details are still out. Back home, Brown University had a shooter who went into a classroom, yelled something. People are disagreeing whether it was Allah Akbar or what it was, but he executed 2 students and may have wounded 9 others. And again, the same mystery. How can a university with thousands of feet taken of video every hour not have him on their video records? How did he know where the classroom was? How did he know his way around Providence, Rhode Island? Why did they get another suspect who was a white male, former Army recruit, blasted his name everywhere as a likely suspect? He had nothing to do with it. And now we're told to be very, very careful about this suspect. He may allegedly be a Palestinian student.
Okay, by the way, this was debunked. It wasn't this guy that they're now talking about. But again, what we're seeing here is not just crazy incidences of terrorism or of sabotaging our values. We're also seeing the wrong response from the leadership that should be doing something about it. Australia, you've got a terrible terrorist attack, but their response is not to denounce radical Islam. It's to denounce, gun laws and make them even more extreme. With this Brown shooting, you have a university that for some reason can't figure out who the shooter is, don't have the right documentation, don't really know exactly how to respond to a shooting. In France, you've got a threat to a big event, and instead of actually responding with strength and with, we don't care, we're going to continue with this anyway, you've got, okay, let's just shut it down and panda. With ISIS, you have the same thing, invitations of Giuliani, despite the fact that you've got this Syria escalations. You have a very interesting thing, which is terrible, terrible actions by individuals, and then leadership responding like idiots.
What am I getting at with all of these situations? I could multiply them tenfold. They are indicative of 3 or 4 pathologies in the West right now. Number one, the borders of, it's hard to say Australia because it's an island continent, but they are open. Europe's are open. Ours had been open until Trump. By open, I mean thousands of people are coming from the poorest and sometimes the most antithetical of societies into Western countries. And they are not assimilating, not acculturating, and not integrating. In fact, they're creating enclaves of resistance, mostly in the case of those from the Middle East. The October 7th slaughter of Jews and the reaction against the perpetrators in Gaza set off a whole new round where our Western university campuses were literally taken over by foreign nationals on student visas that were rooting for Hamas, a terrorist-designated organization, or chanting "River to the Sea," the erasure of Israel and the Jews entirely in the Middle East, etc., etc. So there are no borders. The second problem was there was a diversity, equity, inclusion.
Remember, when we spoke about Ben Shapiro's speech, what did he say? His whole thing was a movement without borders, a movement without defined clarity is a problematic movement. And when you see anything that doesn't have a very clear definition around it, like, for example, an open marriage, or a country that allows people to infiltrate, or a home without security, or, I don't know, a diamond that's on display with no sort of protection, you understand that something is going to go wrong with the thing you value. When you have something you value, you protect it, and you make sure that it is very clear what goes on around it. We know it's the secret to good parenting, creating boundaries for children, and it is the secret to a good society is creating healthy boundaries.
Ideology in the West that said that society is binary and 30% of the non-white population is a perpetual victim of these victimizers. There's no proof needed that the 70% victimizers have done anything. It's just that their heritage was oppressive.
Right.
And therefore, the 30% deserve reparatory action. That can be affirmative action, it can be DEI admittance, preference in hiring, it can mean awards are given disproportionately, it can mean that merit will not be a criterion, it can mean a lot of stuff. But in the case of these incidents, it means if the perpetrator is from the Middle East, there's a feeling, a general feeling that you cannot identify him. Or if you do identify him, or you say it's a radical Muslim, you have to then say, we deplore all of violence. We deplore anti-Semitism, which is the case in point in Australia, but we also deplore Islamophobia, of which there is no examples of people mass shooting Muslims in the cases we have seen. The third,
I think this is something for everybody to think about. You know, I always know if it was an Islamic terrorist attack by the way the media reports it straight away, because the media will never, ever, ever say anything about the personality. They just won't say anything. And if it's suspected that it is a white person or somebody that fits into their narrative, it'll say very quickly, white, young, male, suspect, right? Immediately. Potential Jewish, bleh. But if it's somebody who fits into the Muslim stereotype or the immigrant stereotype, be like, suspect on the run. And that's how I always know. You see, if you're not going to call out evil for what it is, you've accepted it, you've legitimized it. If you've proven to the people who are evil that you're so afraid of their evilness that you're just not actually even going to say it out loud, they're winning. I mean, Voldemort, he who shall not be named. This was a genius idea of J.K. Rowling back in the day. Fear of the name creates fear of the thing itself. Being not able to identify something for what it is a problem. I mean, I just saw this crazy tweet where some kind of newspaper said that they would put a capital on anybody who's black. Like they would name, if it's a black person, it gets a capital, but white people doesn't. Because, you know, black people should be respected, but white people not as respected. It's a whole mentality that's so unbelievably unhealthy. Do I think whites are better than blacks? Do I think immigrants are better than citizens? Those are conversations that we could have for 100 million years, but that's not the point. The point is to be able to just call out the simple facts. The second we're afraid of the facts, and we don't like those facts, and we avoid and negate those facts, we are giving permission to anybody else to continue to do the thing that they do. There's a reason that this response to the Australia thing, to the UK thing, to everything that we're seeing, the Brown thing, it's problematic. If the leadership is afraid to call out the thing, if the leadership won't protect its people and it's afraid to call out the people who do attack its people, then we have a problem. And all of this obviously comes from the victimhood mentality, which infiltrated us from all of the enemies of the West, like Russia, etc. It's an ideology that's written out. We actually should definitely do a review of the Useful Idiots video. Okay, that's for another time.
Catalyst for all this is,
we're on the third.
Let's be honest, it's Western decline. The West is in spiritual, emotional, psychological, sociological, economic decline. True. The fertility rate is 1.4 in Europe, 1.7 something in the United States. Green energy ideology and zealotry has made energy almost unaffordable in Western Europe and to a degree in the United States, partly on the prompt of the Chinese, who sell cheap solar, wind, and green advocacy so they can build nuclear plants, coal plants, import embargoed oil, and have an edge competitively in economic rivalry. In addition to that, the West is not defended. The military budget in Europe until recently was anemic, and I think Germany at one time recently had only 8 operable tanks, as we see in Ukraine. And the world doesn't stop because Europe says it's going to disarm. And we, to a greater extent, under the Obama and Biden administration, were disarmed. We were short almost 50,000 recruits. I could go on, but the combination of a lack of confidence in the West, in their culture, their tradition, their values, their heritage, their ancestors, coupled with this utopian idea you're going to change the demographic by bringing in poor people from antithetical societies, with the false multiplier that you're going to be racially and sexually and gender fixated and oppressed and dole out special beneficia to people based on their superficial appearance. It was a perfect storm. And if we didn't have these catastrophes, we'd have to invent them. Thank you very much.
Okay. I have a lot to unpack on that. I think that the decline of Western society is a huge contributing factor, right? If we go back to the example of a home, if you have a home, but it's not a home that you love and it's not a home that you care to protect, or it's a home that you're so focused on all the issues within it, then you might not be thinking about locking the doors, securing the borders or the boundaries, right? If you have a country that doesn't believe in its values, or it's so falling apart in so many ways, then you're miles away from actually thinking about defending it. By the way, this is the reason for the tactic of these ideologies trying to infiltrate into the West. They know and understand that a weak West is defeatable. Oh, it's Christmas tomorrow. They know that a weak West is defeatable. They know that. And therefore, to defeat the West, you need to weaken it. It is upon the leadership, it is upon the leader of a house to make sure that the West doesn't become weak. And so when you see a country that has its economy falling apart and its values falling apart and spirituality falling apart, why do you think all of the ideologies that the West hates, like communism, etc., try and break apart family units? Why? Because family units is a defender against infiltration. A strong family is capable of saying, we don't agree in this, we don't believe this, we don't want this on our borders. That, coupled with a lack of ability to defend themselves because they haven't built out a strong military, means that you have a problem. The fact that Europe is so dependent on countries like Israel or America for their alliances, for their intelligence, is really, really problematic. When you don't invest in protecting yourself, when you don't invest in an alarm system or in a door, then you're going potentially to be infiltrated. A combination of all of these factors, a home that you don't want to protect, a lack of ideas of what the borders of your home really is, a lack of security infrastructure in place, and a lack to condemn people who are trying to infiltrate in, is going to create a problematic society in which you're going to see the erosion of it. All of these factors combine to why Western leadership have done such a bad job at fighting against Islamization. They've fallen for political pressure, they've fallen for this whole kind of movement of victimhood, etc. And even our Western leaders, who are more to the right, have fallen for it to some degree. Now, the good news is that a lot of people are really fighting back. Really, they've just had enough. And it's not a surprise that you have a leader like Trump or a leader like Bibi or a leader like this guy in Poland who's absolutely amazing, whose response has been very clear-cut. Yeah, we have to fix the economy, the tariffs, we're not interested in it. Yeah, we have a war to fight. If you're going to stop us, we're not interested in it. Yeah, we're not going to allow any immigrants because we see it's problematic. We're not interested in it. That kind of unapologetic protection of a country is what every person needs. And it's a big part of why there's such an enormous support of Trump. But again, remember, when we're looking specifically at American society, we're not looking at England or Europe. The problem right now that we're seeing is an attempt to infiltrate. And the only way that you can infiltrate is if the society itself is falling apart. It is not for nothing that we are seeing this massive divide within the West. It's not for nothing that we're seeing this massive divide within the right-wing movement, because a divided movement is easier to infiltrate. If everybody's focusing on these niche issues that they're angry or frustrated about, they're not focusing on the external enemy. It's simple and it's easy logic. It just isn't very hard to understand. The irony is that this group, specifically the right-wing group that should be on the forefront of fighting this, who have been anti-immigration, illegal immigration, and who have been anti-Islam for so long, they're the ones who are falling for the exact plot to make them allow for these things to take over. It's genius, actually, because it's an age-old hatred of Jews, of Israel, that has been metastasizing for years and years and years. And the focus in on that, the focus in on the kind of Israel versus America question, instead of America versus radicalization of Islam, where Israel's such a small problem, that is exactly where they want your attention diverted. And that's what's happening. That's why our leadership is failing us, because they won't define the borders. They won't protect the borders properly. They're allowing for the decline within our societies, and they won't call out the enemy the way that they need to be called out. And that's why we do that here. We know what we stand for. We're not apologetic. We're courageous in it. We call out the people that we don't like, and we are unafraid to do it because we know what we value. We know what we care about, and we know it's worth protecting. You know your home is worth protecting. You know your religion is worth protecting. You know your society is worth protecting. And yes, we can go in a million times over to all the issues that we have within the Western society and the economy. Yes, there are tons. It never ends. But where your energy flows, no. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. If you put your attention into the things that are terrible, then you're just going to focus on that, and then the enemy can infiltrate. If you focus on the things that we're doing well and we're succeeding in, we are undeniable, we are unstoppable, and we are impenetrable. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and I appreciate you being here with me, Meira K, on another episode of The Pushback.